Alright, I'm going to see if I can get two little mini podcasts in today. This is going to be on the scientific investigations of Loch Ness. A little bit longer, but I kind of wanted to section these out in shorter little fragments, little parts for you all. Makes it a little more easier digestible. But yeah, this is the actual scientific investigations of the Loch Ness Monster. This is part 4. Sorry, part 3 last video, part 3. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's on the surgeon's photographs. I was saying it was part 4 or part 3. I couldn't remember, but this is part 4, so. Pardon me. As technology has improved over the decades, the search for Loch Ness has intensified. One of the earliest of new technologies originated during World War II and was first employed at Loch Ness shortly thereafter. To scan the dark, mysterious depths of the loch, expeditions use sonar, a device that detects objects underwater. Incredibly, not all the scientific search parties struck out. In December 1954, Captain Donald MacLean and First Mate Peter Anderson used their fishing boat, Rival 3, to conduct the first sonar readings of Loch Ness. While scanning the underwater terrain, the investigators located a large unidentified object nearly 500 feet below. The prowling submariner traveled at the same speed as the boat for half a mile before disappearing. The eerie sound signature was not an error, and it did not occur again. Investigators were tantalized and encouraged by the potential that science had to open up the impenetrable loch and its secrets. A study in Scotland. In 1962, the Loch Ness Phenomenon Investigation Bureau was formed to identify the creature known as the Loch Ness Monster or to determine the causes of the reports of it. At first, members armed with cameras and telescopic lenses watched the loch around the clock. But beginning in 1968, the group began using a variety of tools, including sonar, mini two-man submarines, and underwater strobe photography. Their result was largely discouraging. Instead of capturing Nessie, most surface photos were of birds or vegetation. Underwater images documented only large schools of fish. The Loch Ness Bureau disbanded in 1972. Although it had failed to prove the existence of the Loch Ness Monster, the group demonstrated conclusively that the fabled creature did not behave as it had been depicted in many of the famous photos in its own way. The Bureau was successful in confirming that the images must have been faked. So if anything, from what they're saying, it disproved the previous photos. Which that's the thing about cryptozoology and paranormal and conspiracy theories is most of the time you end up disproving it, you know. It can be discouraging, but it can be a good thing too at the same time, you know, if it's a negative or bad conspiracy or a bad paranormal event, perhaps like demonic possession or something like that, you know. I mean, can be a good thing. I've noticed the older I've gotten, the more skeptical I've become, you know. Sadly, being a conspiracy theorist and ghost hunter and cryptozoologist, being into all that, you get made fun of a lot. People automatically assume that you believe everything, and it's like, just because I have an interest in it doesn't mean I believe in it. I got kind of in an argument with somebody in the comment section one time because I'd made a video on it was a Christian relic. It was a piece of Jesus's manger And I made a video on it because I found it to be interesting. And the guy was like, "Do you believe that? You really think that's a piece of the manger? That's not proof. That's not evidence." And I was like, just because I'm reporting on it, making a video on it, doesn't mean I believe it. It just means I'm interested in it. I said I collect, occult items. It doesn't mean I think every occult item works. I said, I collect Pokemon cards too. That doesn't mean I believe in Pokemon. Like, just because you collect something or have an interest in it doesn't mean that it's all real, doesn't mean that you believe it all. I don't know, it's kind of aggravating being a conspiracy theorist. I feel like we're discriminated against. Let's see. Bait and switch. Aboard a Vickers Pisces minisub, skipper R.W. Estraw and zoologist Arthur Bourne had an unexplained, his last name is Bourne, it's literally spelt like Bourne Identity, had an unexplained Loch Ness encounter in the summer of 1969. Their scientific mission was to sonar scan the deepest trenches of the loch and use the robotic arm on the exterior of the submersible to gather samples of organic material from the loch bed. Ultimately, the sub itself became a target. We hit something with a resounding crash that had reverberated through the sphere, Bourne revealed. Not only did the sonar register nothing beneath or around us, but we could not see anything either. Even with very careful maneuvering and using our high-powered lights. Although Bourne admitted a sinking tree truck, I think they meant to spell tree trunk, could have slammed into the sub, he didn't believe that it would have caused an enormous jolt that they experienced. But was it the offensive attack of a half-ton sea creature? This was the only time that Pisces struck with anything like this kind of force, Bourne said. We will probably never know what we hit. Sporadic efforts continued until a new, hopefully definitive expedition was mounted. Determined to confirm whether Loch Ness had a monster, scientists coordinated a massive 10-day search called Operation Deep Scan. Why do they have such cool names like Operation High Jump, Operation Deep Scan, Project Paperclip? Like, I don't know. I want to come up with like something cool, like a cool name. Well, I guess I kind of do. Like, this podcast is called Conspiracy Corner. Me and my wife's ghost hunting group is called Spectre. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of cool. Spectre doesn't really even stand for anything. We just thought it sounded cool. Sporadic efforts continued until a new, hopefully definitive expedition was mounted, determined to confirm whether Loch Ness had a monster. Scientists coordinated a massive 10-day search called Operation Deep Scan. In 1987, approximately 24 boats were evenly deployed across the width of the loch, each equipped with sonar. The flotilla simultaneously scanned the length of Loch Ness. The plan was to document any large creature that moved through the acoustic curtain. On the first day, the fleet got 3 unidentified hits on the sonar. All 3 objects seemed tantalizing in the motion, and one was tracked for more than 2 minutes. There's something here that we don't understand, reported sonar manufacturer Darrell Lawrence, who supplied the boat with his Lawrence X-16 sonar equipment. There's something here that's larger than a fish, maybe some species that hasn't been detected before. Unfortunately, subsequent searches yielded no sonar hits. Team leader Adrian Shine hypothesized that the unknown creatures were probably seals passing through the loch. Equally frustrating was that Operation Deep Scan was hampered by 2 major issues. With so many sonar devices in close proximity, the sound waves created interference. The sensitivity of each device had to be dialed down to the minimum, which provided less accurate readings. Additionally, only the deepest areas of Loch Ness were searched. Fleet did not scan the shallower sides of Urquhart Bay area near the center of the loch. Omitting them left nearly 40% of Loch Ness unexplored. Although it failed to find Nessie, the expedition succeeded in locating the submerged tree trunk that Dr. Rhines misidentified in the 1970s as the Loch Ness Monster. So that's kind of cool. I wonder if they still have that tree trunk, like somewhere. It would be neat to go to Loch Ness in general and go check out their museum and the actual lake. And I don't know. I wish I was rich sometime so I could go visit these places and go check them out. The closest thing that I did, like with cryptozoology and looking for a sea monster, was me and my wife went out to Lake Harrington, where there's supposedly a pig-faced sea serpent on the lake and gigantic catfish the size of school buses. We didn't find anything. We made a YouTube video on it, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's called the Pig-Faced Sea Monster of Harrington Lake. It was fun though, just going out and doing it. You know, it was fun to I wasn't expecting to find anything, and neither was she, but it was fun to just go and do it. I've always wanted to go Sasquatching too. I thought that would be fun. In 2001, Jan Sundberg of the Global Underwater Search Team led Operation Clean Sweep. Its mission was to catch and release Nessie to contain the mythical beast. Sundberg employed a 23-foot-long eel trap. The cage selected was not based on the theoretical size of the Loch Ness Monster, although only relatively small eels are indigenous to the loch. Many experts have concluded that eyewitnesses who reported seeing a creature with a long neck and several humps were actually describing a large eel. See, why, like a large eel though, I would think that back in the day they would have just called it a sea serpent, you know? I think a lot of sea serpents and stuff are either like oarfish or, you know, like that, like a large snake, like a large eel, you know? I mean, that's essentially what a sea serpent is, a gigantic water snake. So, I mean, I don't think those sightings are fake. I think they just didn't have the word for eel back then, you know? After sweeping Loch Ness for 2 weeks, the research team and their trap came up empty. Coincidentally, during the expedition, a group of tourists stumbled upon 2 beached eels. Neither were sizable enough to be considered Nessie suspects. Another exasperating bust. I don't know, this is exciting. I like this. The whole expeditions on trying to find it and stuff. Maybe I'm just a nerd. Maybe I'm a big conspiracy tinfoil hat nerd, but this type of stuff is exciting to me. Let me know in the comments. Give it a like, and if you like this type of stuff, you know. To me, I love this type of stuff. So let's see. In the early 2000s, scientists organized yet another ultimate Loch Ness investigation. A 600 sonar survey team simultaneously scanned the entire lake, leaving no room for a large animal to hide or sneak through undetected. To prepare for the hunt, researchers studied the reclusive habits of crocodiles, turtles, and other marine reptiles and amphibians to anticipate how best to detect the elusive Nessie. Based on their studies, the team decided to search for evidence of Nessie rather than the creature itself. They used sonar to look for pockets of air bubbles. "We went from shoreline to shoreline, top to bottom on this one," a specialist told the press. "We have covered everything in this loch in the end. No sizable aquatic animal was discovered." Another folklore bubble burst. Undaunted, a global group of scientists is bringing the search. Okay, this is old news. It's basically talking about on this last section, basically, a DNA test was done in 2019. I do not have internet connection right now, so by the time you're hearing this, it'll already be posted. I don't have my internet connection right now. I'm living out in the country off the grid for a little bit, so honestly, when I do get all these posted, you'll probably get hit in your inbox of like 5 or 6 notifications of, hey, here you go, here's some podcasts to listen to. But yeah, so if anyone knows what happened on that 2019 DNA test, if you don't care, look it up and hit me up in the comments and let me know what the results were. I'm sure they weren't earth-shattering. I'm sure it was honestly a bust, because I haven't heard anything else on it. But as far as I know, I think we got one more Loch Ness Monster episode. And I think that's about it. I think it'll wrap up everything there is to talk about and tell about Loch Ness. And then after that, I'm going to start a podcast on the Tomb of Christ. So if there's any Christian fans out there, tune in for that. I got one more Loch Ness Monster, and then we're switching to the Tomb of Christ. So I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast, and I hope you guys stay tuned and subscribe if you're not, because there's more to come. I really have been wanting to do a podcast for probably about 2 years, maybe a year and a half now. It's just been my number one top priority that I've really been wanting to do, so I'm glad that I'm finally getting to do it. It's exciting. It makes me happy. I enjoy doing it, so let me know in the comments what you guys think if you enjoy this new podcast. And you all have a good day.